tuned for a meeting of the City of Calabasas Commission. The meeting will be broadcast using Zoom and the city's CTV Channel 3. Commission members may teleconference into the meeting without noticing or posting an agenda at their teleconference location. Besides the live TV and Zoom broadcast, the live stream of the meeting may be viewed online at cityofcalabasas.com/CTV Live. If you want to provide public comment, press raise hand if you're using Zoom or *9 if you're joining by phone. Just unmute yourself by pressing *6. Say your name and the city you live in. You'll be allowed 3 minutes to address the commission regarding any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. If the power or internet goes out lasting more than 15 minutes, or if there's some event that prevents the commission from meeting or prevents you from providing public comment, then the meeting will be adjourned. Any items noticed as public hearings will be rescheduled to the next regular commission meeting. Any other agenda items the commission has not taken action on will be placed on a future agenda. Now, a meeting of the City of Calabasas Commission.
Okay, are we ready to begin yet? Yes? Oh, okay, good. Well, good evening, everyone. This is the Planning Commission meeting of the City of Calabasas, February 16th, 2023. I'm Michael Harrison, and it looks like all our commissioners are present except for Wendy Fastberg, who has an excused absence. So first on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and let's see, Michael Klein, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. Please place your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible,
liberty and
justice for all.
Thank you.
All right, on the agenda, is there a motion to approve or change the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, I didn't hear any. Okay, so next we get to announcements, and I know, John, you have one.
I do. Thank you. I just wanted to announce very happily that we had a groundbreaking last Saturday at Prince of Peace Episcopal Church in Woodland Hills for the construction of a large food pantry. The food pantry has been working out of the church parking lot for the last couple of years, including throughout the pandemic, but through an extraordinarily generous grant from the state and through significant private contributions, we're going to be able to build a very large warehouse and distribution center on the church property. Now, the food pantry is non-denominational. It's run by a number of organizations, including our church, Kol Tikva, several other parishes and congregations, supported by mosques and synagogues. It's really a wonderful operation. And it's been in existence since the early 70s, founded by one nice lady who saw a person who needed food, and she decided we ought to get in that business. And so during the pandemic, we were feeding as many as 14,000 mostly Valley, but not exclusively Valley, food insecure people per month. So we had the Episcopal Bishop, Jesse Gabriel, the Assemblyman, Bob Blumenfield, the Councilman, and our newest Supervisor, Lindsay Horvath, for the 3rd District, all gave wonderful speeches in favor of this project. And we finally went through many administrative proceedings, but got it done. Ground has been broken. Will probably be a year in construction. So it was a wonderful event, and largely, not completely, but largely supported by the community and definitely supported by the politicians. So I also, just in closing, Mr. Chairman, want to note that many Calabasans have been very generous donors to this project in coordination with our Los Angeles Food Bank, which is our sponsor organization. So Calabasas, while it's in Woodland Hills, Calabasas is very much a part of it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, John. Where is that exactly? I mean,
if you know the LA City Park on Shoup, we used to call it Shoup Park. There are a number of churches and playgrounds in that area, and it's tucked away right back behind the park.
the park that used to have, or I don't know if it still has a swimming pool. It used to have anyway. Okay, I know which one you're
That's right.
talking about. That's not far at all. That's great to have something like that in the West Valley near us. Any other announcements? I've got one on February 25th, Saturday from 9 to 3 at Pierce College. There's going to be a West San Fernando Valley Disaster Preparedness Fair, sponsored by a number of people and companies and so forth. And so it's free. And if anybody's interested, please attend. Maybe we can have something like that ourselves one day. If there are no other announcements, then we go to oral communications, I believe. And this is for anybody who wants to speak on something that's not on the agenda. And so not something that doesn't concern item 2 on the agenda. I believe that's the only thing we have on our agenda. So Tony, or is there anybody who wishes to speak? They have to raise their hand or somehow indicate that they want to speak. Is there anybody who wants to speak on anything?
There are no hands currently raised. Oh,
okay, great. Then we'll just go on to the continued public hearing. Excuse me, for site plan review, SPR, file SPR, I guess that's site plan review 2022-010 concerning 23939 Park Renata in Westridge. I suppose we could, first I just want to say that we have received correspondence on this from a couple of pieces of correspondence from Stephen and Eleanor Zinato, and also from Marie and Evelyn London.
Chair
yes.
Harrison, sorry.
Yeah.
We missed the approval of the minutes from January 19th.
I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. Approval of the minutes. That is the first item. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And we discussed this, and how are we going to, you need to make some comments, I guess.
Yes. So as you just alluded to, Chair Harrison, you and I had some questions or had a discussion over the minutes. Based on that conversation, there were a couple changes that I want to propose to the commission. On page 2 of the minutes from January 19th, under the announcements and introductions on the second paragraph, it says Vice Chair Harrison congratulated, and right now it says Commission Byrne, but it should say Commissioner Byrne, so that will be corrected. And then for item number 3, which is the first public hearing item regarding SPR 2022-010, we should add a line underneath the project description, and before where it says Associate Rackerby made a presentation, we should add a line that says Commissioner Fastberg recused herself from item number 3 due to a financial conflict. And then that will complete the record indicating that she was recused and did not participate in that vote.
Right. Thank you for those changes. Are there any other changes that any of the other commissioners would like to make or question?
I have a few. They're mostly language as opposed to anything material, but on page 5, the paragraph 2, it says Commissioner Washburn motioned to put on the table resolution, whatever. And I would change that language with your agreement to what Commissioner Washburn moved to approve resolution 2023-746. And obviously there was a bunch of stuff that followed. So in paragraph, let's see, what are there, 5, at the end of the paragraph, it says, motion to add the above language to the general plan implementation chapter. And I would say something to the effect that in the recommended resolution to the city council, because we don't change the general plan at the planning commission. We recommend changes via resolution, usually to the city council. And then in paragraph 7, again, Commissioner Washburn withdrew his motion to approve resolution 2023-746 because instead of saying he disagreed with the last amendment, that was not really the issue. But the language I would propose instead, because he did not want to amend the original motion with the change to the implementation chapter. Because it wasn't a question of disagreement, it was a question of language and dealing with the procedure that we were going through.
Okay, so can you repeat that last part? Because
It's paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's actually 8. The Commissioner Washburn withdrew his motion to approve resolution 2023-746 because he did not want to amend the original motion with the change to the implementation chapter. Again, we don't change the general plan.
Well, I do want to comment motion.
I have one last thing, and then there was Commissioner Mueller reinstated the motion, and it's really the amended motion because the motion was amended to change the direction of what we did. And that's the set of changes I would recommend.
Okay, with regards to paragraph, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 6. I think that was the one that you're referring to. The motion was to modify the language of the general plan implementation chapter. So that, or the suggestion that was made was to change that, not the resolution. So I would leave that paragraph the same, but do suggest that we take the other amendments.
Well, I disagree with that. And the reason is that the motion that I made initially, and that was ultimately amended and remade by Commissioner Mueller, was to send it with a recommendation to the council that the language in the implementation chapter be changed. We don't get to do that. We can change the amendment recommendation to the council, but the council makes the decision on what the ultimate changes, if any, to the general plan and the general plan implementation chapter would be. We may want to ask the attorney if there's any reason not to do it, as I have suggested.
These are all recommendations to the council.
Exactly.
Do you want to come back to us, staff? Or,
No, I mean, if there was a polishing of the language that the staff needs to make in order to meet the extent of our, I guess, authority and recommendations, that's okay with me as well. As long as it isn't left to me to be in disagreement with you all.
Yeah.
And we were dealing with procedure as opposed to, some outcome that we're trying to create here.
Yeah, and I do have your notes for the 8th paragraph. So that will be, if approved by the commission, that will say Commissioner Washburn withdrew his motion to approve resolution 2023-746 because he did not want to amend the original motion to change the implementation chapter. So I have those comments in there.
That's good. And,
I think for the, I think
Commissioner Mueller ultimately made the recommendation to, to pass essentially an amended motion.
Yeah,
and
I have that in there too.
But I think the paragraph at issue is the one that starts after further discussion. And I think it's easily resolved by saying after further discussion, Commissioner Byrne moved and Commissioner Leah seconded the motion to recommend to the council the addition of the above language to the general plan implementation chapter.
That works for me.
Okay.
It's fine.
That's okay with you, Greg?
Yes.
Thank you all. And that's all I have in the way of comments. And thanks, John, for making it simpler.
I just have one little thing that probably relates to the same two areas here, and it's up to Epi perhaps to tell us where this should happen. But both of those show a motion that carried 3-2. And I believe usually if you have a split vote, it's best to show who voted what. Is that necessary there?
It's not strictly necessary, but I would recommend it just because the minutes are a memorialization of what happened. So for future review and, people reviewing this in the past who want to check the legality of the actions taken by the Planning Commission, it's important to assure that that was done.
Well, that's a change in what we've done. So in the past, not just on this, but on everything. So I have no problem with that. And what do the other commissioners say? Is that all right?
Me.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I mean, we said it in public, so I don't see why it can't be there.
Right.
So throughout, I guess from now on, I guess we should do that.
Well, for the record, in that case, and, the two opposed were myself and Commissioner or Chair at the, it was Commissioner at the time, because you were made chairman earlier on in the meeting.
Correct. Right.
And that would be on both of them.
Both of them. Yes.
Motions, 3-2, it was the majority, and the non-approving, which were Washburn and Fosberg.
All right. Any other changes to the minutes that anybody would like?
Yes, I have one on.
Go ahead.
The top of page 4. You have 4 points, and I mention this only because it'll come up. I asked that there be a report from the traffic department on the traffic problems outside the gate that were alluded to in correspondence we had received.
Okay. Can we add that one as number 5?
Excuse me. I don't recall that the issue was traffic outside the gate. The question that was always raised by people was traffic, speeding, and basically safety just inside the gates, particularly when residents and others who are exiting that community approach those gates going down that steep hill. That was the traffic issue, as I recall, that was articulated both in writing and in verbal testimony by people addressing the commission.
But I did.
I agree with Commissioner Leah. It was raised, and there was a discussion on whether or not trucks outside the gate would have to line up in some order or special area so as not to impede traffic circulation on the main parkway. So there was some discussion about that, and because there was some concern whether or not if they couldn't get through the gate because of other problems, where were they going to be?
Right, and that is an issue, so that should be added there. And I guess if we don't discuss it tonight, we'll have to address that. I mean, if the staff doesn't bring that up, we'll address it. So that should be added to the minutes. Anything else that needs to be changed in the minutes? No. All right. So should we have this come back so we can approve it next time because there are a lot of changes, or?
I would move approval of the amended minutes.
With all those, okay.
Yeah,
Is there
with
a
everybody's
second?
comments and the corrections from the attorney and from staff and, from Commissioner Leah.
The second, is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Oh. All those in favor of the approving the amended minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? All right. Okay. Thanks, Michael. I'm so sorry I skipped over that, but that is important. Now we're getting back to item number 2, the continued public hearing. I did acknowledge that we received additional correspondence, and I assume we're going to have a brief staff report, and then commissioners can ask questions, and then we'll open the public hearing and for the applicant, and the public can speak, and then we'll close the public hearing, and commissioners can speak among themselves and decide what to do. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jacqueline, I guess.
Thank you, Chair Harrison.
Thank you.
I do have a PowerPoint, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, if everyone can see my screen. Good evening, commissioners. I'd like to start out by mentioning that this project was noticed ahead of the January 19th meeting to property owners located within 500 feet of the subject site. The notice was also posted on the city's website and throughout the city at all required locations. At the January 19th Planning Commission meeting, this item, which is file number SPR-2022-010, was continued to the date certain meeting of February 16th, 2023, which is tonight. Therefore, no new public hearing notice was required. As Chair Harrison mentioned, we did receive 3 additional emails from individuals who had spoke at the last public hearing, and that public correspondence has been posted at the city's website and has been distributed to all the commissioners. And just as a brief recap of the project, here we have the location map. You can see my cursor. The site is outlined in green here. It's within the residential single-family zoning district and within the Westridge HOA. And an aerial map of the subject site. Again, just as a brief reminder, this is the location of the site. Here's the guard gate located off of Parkway Calabasas, and the property is off of Park Granada right here. Okay, so at the January 19th Planning Commission meeting, the commissioners had continued this item to the meeting of February 16th, 2023, with a request that the below information be provided. Number 1, craft a condition in coordination with the Public Works Department and the Traffic and Transportation Division in regards to traffic control throughout the duration of construction. Number 2, provide a grant deed to confirm current ownership of the property. Number 3, provide a floor area ratio analysis and a home comparison for the Westridge community. Number 4, provide a letter of denial from the Westridge HOA. And number 5, revise the design of the south wall of the new 3-car garage to incorporate either a wrought iron vent, window trim, or a tall window to provide additional articulation on that wall face. So starting with number 1, item regarding crafting a condition in coordination with the Public Works Department. So condition number 19 has been added to the amended Planning Commission Resolution number 2023-750. And I have it here. It reads in full: construction activity in the street and corresponding traffic control shall be provided such that individual driveways have safe sight distance for oncoming vehicles and vehicular access to other private properties is maintained at all times. The city shall have the authority to determine what constitutes safe sight distance, which shall be in consultation with the applicant. Any construction activity in the street shall require a city-issued encroachment permit, and in addition, may have to be approved by the Private Homeowners Association or HOA. We do also have our Deputy Public Works Director here tonight if you have any questions for her about traffic as well. Moving on to number 2, provide the grant deed to confirm current ownership of the property. The application form has been revised to include both property owners, and the grant deed has been obtained as well. Both those documents are included in the packet as Exhibit D and Exhibit E respectively. As showed on the grant deed, the property is owned by the Dadon Family Trust. The grant deed lists both Barry and Ashley as trustees, and the revised application form lists both their signatures. Moving on to number 3, a floor area ratio analysis and home comparison of the Westridge community. So we have this chart here, which comes from the data that was included in your packets as Exhibit C. So staff utilized data from the LA County Assessor to compare floor area ratios for the entire community. Just to reiterate, LA County Assessor data looks at only the habitable square footage, so just the residents. It doesn't look at garage sizes. So in order to obtain this data is the residents, so the habitable area of each of the properties divided by the lot size. So the average FAR for the entire HOA is 0.31. Here we have the proposed project FAR, which is 0.27, so it is less than the average floor area ratio for the entirety of the community. And next we have a comparison of setbacks within Westridge. So as you can see here, the majority of the homes in the Westridge community are between 15 to 19 feet from the residence to the property line, with the average being 24 feet. The subject site is proposed to be set back 31 feet from the front property line. So with that proposed 3-car garage, it will be set back farther than the average home in the Westridge community. I do also want to mention on the slide that this chart does exclude outliers in the community flag lots. Flag lots were removed because it's difficult to do an apples to apples comparison of a flag lot versus a standard lot. So those were removed for the purposes of the setback comparison. Moving on to number 4, the commission requested that we provide the letter of denial from the Westridge HOA. So one important development since the January 19th Planning Commission meeting is that the HOA has approved this project. So staff did receive written confirmation that the Westridge HOA board has now approved the project as proposed. Therefore, there is no letter of denial provided. And number 5, revise the design of the south wall of the new 3-car garage to incorporate either a wrought iron window vent or a wrought iron vent, window trim, or tall windows in order to provide additional articulation on this wall. As I mentioned above, because of the fact that the HOA and the property owner have now come to a decision on the project and the HOA has now approved the project as it's currently designed, the applicant has elected to not make any further changes to the project design. And just as a reminder, as seen previously, this is a rendering of the home with the proposed addition. As you can see here, these are the windows that were set back a few inches per the ARP's recommendation. There are no changes from the prior meeting. Moving on to their construction management plan, which is contained in your packets as Exhibit B. So according to the applicant, there are approximately 5 trucks or construction vehicles that are to be expected on the site at a time. So as you can see here, I've highlighted those in blue to make them a little bit easier to see. So there's room for about 5 at a time on site. This plan also shows room for a trash dumpster, a bobcat, porta potty, and 2 different material storage areas, one at the front of the site and one at the rear of the site here. As you can see as well, there's additional room in the driveway here for a vehicle to be able to get on site to drop off materials if needed and to then exit through the driveway. And then I also want to show here, this is the site of the 3-car garage construction. So once this final phase is underway right here, we'll obviously lose the parking area for the dumpster and the bobcat. There are additional areas on the site that the dumpster could be relocated to, such as right here. However, this is where condition number 19 that was added to the amended resolution comes into play. So if any of the construction vehicles or construction activity can't fit on site, an encroachment permit will be required for that. So our Public Works Department will review and ensure that there are safe site distances from other driveways along Park Granada for any activity that cannot fit on site. As documented in the written staff report, the proposed project will not alter the existing single-family use of the subject site, which is an allowed use in the residential single-family zoning district, meets all required development standards, is compatible in design, appearance, and scale with surrounding uses, is recommended for approval by the ARP, is exempt from CEQA review, and meets all required findings for a site plan review. So with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2023-750 as amended and distributed to the Planning Commissioners to approve as file number SPR-2022-010. Thank you, and I am available for questions. I do also want to mention that the architect Kier is also in attendance tonight, but he's let me know ahead of time that he does have to head out a little bit early. So he is available for any questions you may have at the moment.
Muted. Sorry, I think I'm muted. All right, thank you, Jacqueline. Do the commissioners have any questions for staff? John.
Yes. Hi, Jacqueline. Thank you for that presentation. How did the HOA document or memorialize its approval? Phone call, letter?
So the HOA board did provide their written approval to staff in email format because of the fact that this item was continued date certain to tonight's meeting. The homeowner is still awaiting that formal approval letter from the HOA, so they just don't have that yet. Because of the fact that the email that was provided to staff includes personal email information, additional correspondence within that email, such as the HOA attorney's information, it was not included in the packet, but it is part of the project file. They just don't have a formal letter yet.
So you have seen an email which confirms the approval?
Yes, we were sent an email that states from the HOA president that the board approves the project, but because of the additional information in the email, it just wasn't included in the packets.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's it.
Well, thanks, John. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a point on that. In the correspondence we received, someone who claims to be a member of the board says it's not true.
Which item of public correspondence are you talking about?
Well, they're buried in the pile of them.
It's Mr. Zanato.
I don't believe he's a member of the board. I know he's a resident of Westridge.
I don't know whether he is or is not.
To my knowledge, I believe he's just a resident of the community. I don't recall the letter specifying that he's a board member.
Agreed.
Any other questions for staff?
Just a quick one. In one of the correspondences, one of these folks said that some of the garage space had been converted to habitable space. So, you know, and you say that the only the habitable space is included in the FAR calculations. Should the garage that is actually being used as habitable space be included in that calculation?
That's already included because that's part of their proposal for habitable space. So the FAR analysis included all of the area they would have as habitable, including that.
Okay.
Well, if there are no other questions for staff, why don't we open the public hearing and hear from the public? If that's okay. I see we have a couple of hands up, so.
Yeah, we have the first hand that was raised is a phone number 818. So I'm going to go ahead and allow that person to talk. You do have to hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Hi, hello, my name's Marie Lundeen. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Good evening. I'm sorry we mispronounced your name as London, but it's Lundeen. Okay. And we received your correspondence, so go ahead and.
Yes, I sent an email to both your committee or commission meeting and also to the historical commission meeting, because I believe Westridge is a community that could be of historical significance. William R. Polly was a renowned architect, and he was a local Calabasas architect. He built things around the country and around the world, and he was really well known for his housing and his contributions to Calabasas. Westridge is a unique community in that he designed all of the homes here, and they're quite special. If you've seen them on the inside, you'll see that they're more than just a regular custom track community. He had a great vision for light, space, volumes, and beauty on the interiors as well as the exteriors. And that home is one of the award-winning floor plans and elevations that were designed by Mr. Polly that won a nationwide award. There's two plans in the Westridge community. I believe it's the San Marino and the Montecito that were the award winners for that year for the whole nation. I think it's called the Golden Nugget Award. And when they did the presentation of the award too, they consider the exterior view of the homes. That home has a very special presentation with the dual garages and the arched entryways. It's a beautiful example of Polly's work. And I'm very sad to see that someone wants to completely change it and incorporate the garages into living space and stick another garage on that'll stick out like an appendage towards Park Granada. I studied architecture. I've also lived and studied architecture. I have a degree from a renowned school, Rensselaer. And I've seen many, many communities and buildings around the world, and Westridge and Calabasas is a very special place. This project was a surprise for those of us living nearby, and we did not receive notice within the 10-day period, the initial notice. It was not received by us. It was sent out late. I know that there's other people in the community, many, many people that all share the same entrance and exit. And I don't believe any neighbor up the hill from more than a few houses, one or two houses, has received that. And it's not fair because they will all be affected when we come to enter and exit our community on a daily basis. And any vendor, any service person, anyone, the garbage men, they'll all be affected when the work if this work goes through, is to be done. I also know from my architecture background and training that that site plan for the staging seems like an imaginary plan. I don't know how they're going to park that dumpster, how they're going to get in
That
the truck
concludes
big
the
enough
3 minutes.
to do that. There's another person here who'd like to speak with you, and they should be allowed 3 minutes as well.
Who's, thank
I'm
you.
sorry. We happen to be on the same phone today. My name is Evelyn Lundeen. I've lived in this general area, including Hidden Hills, for about 45 years, and particularly in my home here in Westridge since I think it's 1987. I love this place. It's beautiful. It is a legacy of a man who was world renowned. It would put Calabasas on the map. And, you know, there's places in here that have been built 50 years ago. They will probably become historical. It's a beautiful, beautiful community. And there are people who are coming in with their new ideas. Sure, new ideas are good, but don't destroy the old. Because the beauty of Calabasas is unique. And it should be. I was in building too. I was in commercial building. I used to oversee the crews and walk the roofs. And I know construction. I think that this project will bastardize Westridge. And I don't use those words. It's a schlocky project, okay? And I see that people do not honor the legacy and the life work of other people. And that troubles me because we have to appreciate those who have gone before us, who have done the hard work and have the significance and had a life of significance. And we have to honor that. And you know, we're an established community now. When I first got here, we didn't even belong. We didn't even have an entity, you know, and now we do.
HOA yet. No
That's for sure.
CPHA.
That's right. And the city wasn't really a city. So, I mean, I've seen a lot of things happen, and I've seen a lot of, like, people work very hard. Mr. Dinovitz, we knew him. Wonderful man, wonderful developer, great projects. And Mr. Pauly, I think he did about 5 projects in here. He did Westridge, Eastridge,
Creekside, the Ridge, parts of the Ridge, and classic Calabasas. He was a renowned architect.
So I think that those things need to be kept, a lot of it, because there's schools. I think he went to USC is where he graduated from. We should try to invite and see if they'll do tours of the students into our community, not just Hollywood here and all this. We need to have some substance of intellectual wisdom and legacy of those who have gone before him and actually worked in this community, lived in this community, had offices in this community. I don't want to see all that erased. You know, it saddens me that you're not considering. I left people's names at the gate, and I invited people to come to our street and to drive it. No one's shown up that I know of. Your names are there. You can come in. You're invited, and you should. And I'll say clearly to the guys at the gate, the commissioners can come in, the planning department come in, etc.
Thank you, Ms. Lundeen. That concludes the 3 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Lundeen.
But come drive this street and you'll see what you're dealing with.
Well,
It's a life.
As a matter of fact, Ms. Lundeen, I was there a couple of weeks ago visiting a friend in Park Casino, and I was also there last night looking, came in last night. So, I'm sure other commissioners may have come in. Anyway.
When you come, please drive to the top of the hill so you can have the full experience.
Okay.
Staff has been there as well. Staff has been there as well, including me. Just to
Okay.
make that clear.
The gate at the top of the
Do we have any, I see another hand up. Michael, can we let that person speak?
Yes, this is Rachel. You can go ahead and speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
I just wanted to give some support. I live in Westridge. I live at the very bottom of the hill. So my house is probably affected the most by the traffic. And I just wanted to give my support to this project because I've seen the plans and I think they're absolutely gorgeous. We just moved in here 2 years ago, and the homes, and I've seen the inside of the house that they are going to be fixing up. It needs a lot of work. We bought our house 2 years ago and it's just been nonstop work. These homes are very old. They are, very beautiful, but, dated. Not to, be offensive, but, from the original 1980s. And I just know that at the bottom, we're at the very bottom of the hill. I'm sure since a couple of you have come, if you're coming down from the top of the hill, like some people do, they might speed a little bit. But once you get to our homes, the gates close, so everybody starts to slow down anyway. I've never really had a major problem, and I have 2 little boys. So I'm sure if it was that big of a concern, they would have installed a speed bump or something. So it's really not that dangerous. It's not very worrisome to me. And I know the neighbors that are doing the construction, and they've been nothing but amazing neighbors. So I just wanted to offer some support to them as a member of the community.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I think we have one. Michael, Randy?
Yes,
Or
Randy, you can go ahead and speak.
Hi, this is Randy Feilish. I live in Westridge, and like Rachel at the bottom of the hill, I'm in the middle of the hill. And I would also like to lend support to this project. I do believe that, and I believe I said this last time, but our houses were built in 87 and 88, and they are all in need of some type of updates. And just like Beverly Hills, Pacific Palisades, Brentwood, you drive all around the west side, you will see construction going on in all these neighborhoods, and all it's going to do is raise the property values. So I give them credit for wanting to put money into their house and to beautify our neighborhood. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Oh, thank you, Randy. Do we have any other speakers?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Any comments from anybody else, or should we just go in? Should we close the public hearing and go to discussion among the commissioners? Nothing. All right. So then I guess we'll close the public hearing and proceed to hear from the commissioners. Anybody want to make comments? Who would like to go first? No one.
I'll go first.
Go ahead, John. Thank you.
I was pleased to see that staff did address the questions that we raised at the last hearing. I do have a couple of questions for staff to clarify some things that are in the conditions of the resolution. I'm not quite prepared to make the motion yet, but let me just ask Jacqueline a couple of brief questions. One of the concerns that I had at the last hearing was condition 14, which involves the construction activities. That was not changed, but you added a new condition 19, which I think does clarify condition 14 to some extent. But going to 14, it talks about the stacking restrictions, so there'd be no adverse effect on adjacent residents or schools. I don't really know exactly what stacking means on a project like this. Jacqueline, I wonder if you could give me some clarification.
That's a good point, Commissioner Mueller. It does seem to me maybe a little bit redundant of the added condition number 19. So perhaps if that commission would want to do, we could remove those sentences from condition 14 and just go with condition 19 instead.
I mean, stacking sort of sounds like either lining up, or it sounds like you could almost like double parking. It kind of has both connotations.
We also do have Tatiana here as our Deputy Public Works Director, and she was consulted for condition number 19, so she could be able to clarify anything that Public Works would be looking for when they take a look at the traffic plan in order to issue an encroachment permit for any construction activity in the street.
Okay, so if we get to a motion, I will have some changes to suggest for 19. I don't, I'll do that as soon as I or someone else makes a motion. Thank you for that. And the other thing I wanted to just say, make a couple observations, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Absolutely, go ahead. We have time.
I am very aware of and appreciate the depth of concern by certain of the residents. I'm also aware of the support that we've just heard. And I've taken it all into consideration and read it carefully. I do want to just note, without going into a lecture, that this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. This is not about whether the commissioners like or don't like a particular project. The question here is whether or not the findings can be made to support the project. So a lot of the comments that we have seen in correspondence relate to whether or not this applicant has done some things that it ought not to have done in connection with CCNRs on other properties. I think those are valuable concerns. And I think the homeowners association has or should maybe look into those. But candidly, they're really
I'm sorry.
in the record that
okay.
either supports or doesn't support the findings. I see my internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I think your connection froze up for a while, so I'm not sure if we missed anything.
Okay. I was satisfied. I know one of the commenters says that it's impossible to do the staging of the vehicles on the property during construction, and yet we saw from Jacqueline the exhibit which showed where the trucks will sit and where the Bobcat will sit and where the porta potty will sit, and it looked like it works for me. So I don't understand why people are taking the position that it cannot physically work. And I wondered if Jacqueline if can respond to some people who apparently think that it's not doable, where the exhibit, I think, pretty clearly shows that it is. But in any event, I do appreciate the comments that the opponents have made. But again, I think they relate more to things that are beyond our purview tonight, including, I might add, the historical designation. I've been up to Westridge and I've seen several of the properties. I know people up there. The homes are beautiful. I don't dispute the comments about architect Pauley's vision and all of that. But there are ways to protect communities through the historical designation process that I don't think have been followed, because I don't think there is a historical designation, so that changes as proposed are lawful unless and until they're barred by some designation that is not before us in the record. So while I'm appreciative of those comments, I don't really think there's much we can do about it in a project that's proposed like this, which does clearly satisfy the setback and the FAR limitations on such remodels. So those are my comments, Mr. Chairman. And if Jacqueline wants to comment on these vehicles on site to rebut this notion that they can't be done, I would appreciate her doing that.
Thank you, Commissioner Mueller. I'll just go ahead and share my screen again if that works. Here is the construction management plan again. I did hear the comments that it doesn't look like this can all be accommodated on site. And as you can see with the site in its current condition, it looks like it can certainly accommodate, as I mentioned before, a dumpster, Bobcat, the vehicles, the material storage, the porta potty. As construction progresses, as I showed, it's possible that not everything will be able to fit in this area as construction of this 3-car garage begins. There is still area in the driveway back here to stack the vehicles so that this front row of vehicles may not be able to pull out. And in its current design, in the existing condition, all these vehicles would be able to get out independently. It does appear that they may need to start stacking the vehicles behind each other in the driveway once construction of this garage begins. And then if they do need to place anything in the street, that's where that condition would come in, which requires approval from our Public Works Division or our Public Works Department.
Excuse me, can I ask you a question, Jacqueline, about that? It seems to me that the outline of the final phase 3-car garage is incorrect. It's not drawn correctly. If it needs to be like another 1/2 inch to the right. it's going to be 50% bigger than the existing one-story garage structure. And if you take a ruler, which I did to the plans, that's not a correct drawing. So that 3-car garage projects out several feet beyond, at least to where the blue car is, at least. So that plan is false.
I do
And then
have, I do have the
then
old site plan here as well.
yeah, well, they didn't do that. That's not correct. That's false. And then if you look in the backyard, you have material storage. So how are they going to get materials back there?
Excuse me, Commissioner Chair Harrison.
Yeah.
The reason you think it's false is because you're actually still including roof eave that would be eliminated on the south side of that one, the existing garage. So
is it like 5 feet, Tom? Is it a 5-foot roof eave? Because that's how far off it is. The drawing is just not correct. But how are they going to get storage in the backyard? Can they just carry it there? Is that how they're going to do it, by hand?
It's possible. We don't have specifics on what materials will be stored in the backyard, but it is an area that material could be stored in if needed.
Okay, but to be realistic, I mean, I'll make comments later, but I don't think they're going to hand carry, large materials back there. There's a huge, at the bottom of this map, that's a huge slope. And there's a very small pathway on the top of the drawing. So I don't
use a wheelbarrow if needed as well.
Yeah, okay, I guess they could do that. All right, that's it. I just wanted to point that out. That map is false.
I'd like to add a comment, if I may. That drawing shows the vehicles parked. They'll probably only be parked at night. They will be all over the property during the working days. And you can draw your own conclusions, but I've been on enough construction sites to know that they never stay as clean as they look in this drawing.
I'd also like to point out there are no eaves actually on that side of the garage, because this garage doesn't go that way. So, I mean, anyway, but go ahead. I think, are any other questions, John? Or John, you had the floor, I believe.
Oh, thank you. I was done with my questions. Oh, I'm sorry.
Comments. We're on comments, actually.
I did have one other comment. Well, I guess I threw in some questions too, but I did have one other comment, and whether Jacqueline or somebody, the other traffic expert, can comment on the issue that was raised in the last hearing, which is if there isn't adequate room on Park Granada or on site for the construction vehicles, and they have to park outside the gate, is there adequate room on Parkway Calabasas to stack them, have them sit there before 7 o'clock and they can come in? Do they need to go someplace else? Has that been considered by the city?
I think I can let Tatiana take this one.
Commissioner Lero, I can take this question. That condition number 19 that was added to the resolution can cover this activity that you mentioned. That's more a question of construction scheduling and construction logistic. But if there is any need of taking any public right of way in Park Granada, that comes to the point where applicant needs to submit for an encroachment permit and for a traffic control plan, and that can be looked at.
But he's talking about Parkway Calabasas, which is more realistic, not Park Granada. It's way
I'm
too
sorry,
steep.
Parkway Calabasas.
Oh, Parkway Calabasas. So they asked for an encroachment
public
permit.
right away in Parkway Calabasas. Yes, if
Okay.
they have to do any staging, any parking, any
Okay.
kind of activity related to this construction, they have to come to our department to get encroachment permit and submit traffic control plan.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else, John?
No, thank you.
I have
Bob, you have comments?
Yes, how many workers will be on the site at any point in time, and where are they supposed to park?
I believe the 5 vehicles that are shown on the construction management plan would be workers' trucks. The area that I pointed out in the driveway would typically be for material drop off, as any sort of trucks dropping off materials typically wouldn't stick around throughout the day. And then those 5 spaces on site would be for worker parking or vehicle parking on site.
Yeah, Commissioner Leah, that's a question you might want to ask the applicant if just saying they'll have a better idea of how many workers they're going to have and when they're working and that kind of thing than staff will.
Yes, I don't have a great idea of how many people will be in each vehicle, but just from my conversations from the applicant, they had mentioned that they anticipate 5 worker vehicles on site at a time.
5 workers' vehicles in addition to the trucks that we just outlined.
The trucks wouldn't be parking there. They would mostly just be dropping off materials, carrying it to the material storage area, and then leaving.
On your drawing, the vehicles that you showed parked, they are going to be on site most of the time. They're not coming and going.
Let me pull.
I believe those are the 5 worker vehicles that were referenced.
Exactly. They're the worker vehicles.
They come to work in a Bobcat? I don't think so, Tom.
No, not in the,
No,
The
not
blue,
the Tomcat.
the blue.
The blue trucks represent worker vehicles.
So there's only going to be 2 vehicles. Are they going to load them up?
No, there's 3 more here, Commissioner Leah. So 5 vehicles. There's room for 5 vehicles and then 1 Bobcat.
Okay.
Any other comments? I have a lot of comments if nobody else has any.
I have a quick one.
Oh, go ahead.
I believe that it will be quick. Condition number 19, I think the wording, the last sentence, any construction activity in the street. You know, construction activity in the street is not really what we're proposing here. It seems to me like it should be any requirement to park vehicles, construction vehicles on the street. Whether it's on Park Granada or Parkway Calabasas should require some kind of at least input. I don't know about an encroachment permit, but input from the city, you know, about safe, you know, that being done in a safe manner.
Well, if I could just jump in here, I would note that the street is a private street and that the city has code enforcement, you know, authority here as well. So I don't know if that assuages your concern, Commissioner, but it's something to consider.
Well, I'm just
Sure.
saying, we're
and if
talking
I-
about, go ahead.
If I can add a little bit to that, that condition has to do with Public Works. So Public Works would have the authority to review a traffic control plan and an encroachment permit in relation to the street. If I understood your question correctly, referring to on-site construction activity, that would more so be regulated by the Building and Safety Division rather than Public Works.
Yeah,
I think the concern here is the word activity, right? Construction activity. And to clarify it, it could simply say construction vehicle parking.
Right. That's the
Okay.
first part of it. Yes.
Okay.
Construction vehicle parking or storage or whatever we want to call that. I think
You could
that,
also, you could
oh.
word it as construction-related vehicles in the street. That way it's covering parked vehicles as well as moving vehicles.
Yeah, I'm okay with that as well. So something like that would help to clarify this a little bit. I mean, I think that we have to try to listen to some of the, you know, the concerns that some of the people that live in that community has and make sure that when the construction's going on and the streets aren't clogged and there's not problems with ingress and egress, you know, that would be my concern for this. And is the city, you know, is the city proactive here? Do they go out and look at these things when the thing's being constructed, or are they only reactive and call, you know, when people call them and there's an issue?
We do have regular inspections by our Building and Safety Division, many of which also double as code enforcement officers throughout the process of construction. So many of the same people that are going out to the site for inspections are also code enforcement. They're very well trained in knowing if something is off, if they get complaints from the residents or the community, they're out there right away to address any concerns.
And Public Works is typically monitoring on a regular basis
Thank you,
encroachment
Tom.
permit
That's,
compliance.
I mean, I'll assume if there's
I
a
was
problem, you
ready
guys are
to
gonna
add
hear
that.
about it pretty quickly. Okay, if you could just change the construction activity to construction vehicle parking or whatever, you know, what do you want to do there?
we
Commissioner
can
Brady-
change it to construction-related activity and vehicular activity, something similar to that.
Yeah, vehicles got to be in there.
I was going to suggest any project related activity, including vehicular activity, something like that.
Yeah,
Because it could be more, it could be, someone who's just driving up to drop something off. That's not a construction vehicle, but it ought to be regulated nevertheless.
yes, so that's fine. I would be okay with that kind of language.
Was that any
Project-related activity, including vehicular activity.
Right.
Any project-related construction activity, including
Construction activity, including vehicular activity, something like that.
Right.
Greg, can I follow up on your theme?
Absolutely.
And I don't want to get overly complicated, Jacqueline, but one thing I was thinking about is we have the word occasionally street, and I assume we're talking about Park Granada. However, we ought to be careful here because, and I know this happens in my neighborhood sometimes, somebody will have a big project and they'll stack the construction vehicles on another street within my area. So these limitations, the ability of the Public Works Department and Traffic and Transportation to enforce this 19 ought to be for all of Westridge. I don't want this project to be able to dump 10 trucks on what is this? I saw a street, Park Casino.
Yes,
Park Riviera or one of those places to get away from Granada.
Right, Park Casino is the first flat street above it, and that's more.
But we don't have to name the streets, but any street within Westridge ought to be subject to these rules.
Certainly review, by the city in some sense.
And they have the authority to do that under 19.
Yes, the exact locations will probably be up to Tatiana to determine, but maybe we could amend the language of that sentence. I'm just reading it to see what sounds best. We could change maybe in the street to be in streets within Westridge, something along those lines.
Yes.
So any project-related construction activity, including vehicular activity, in the streets within Westridge?
Yes.
Okay.
Is parking not allowed on Parkway Calabasas, or should that be part of this as well?
That technically that's covered by activity in the public right of way, because Parkway Calabasas is not a private street, and that will require issuance of an encroachment permit.
We could word it as
park vehicles.
We could word it as including vehicular activity in the public right of way or in the streets within Westridge.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Let me just write that down.
That's all that I have.
All right. Does anybody else have any comments? Because as I said, I have a lot. I'll let anybody else go. No. So I guess for my comments, I'm coming to this from a different point of view. As I mentioned at the last meeting, I served with Bill Pauley. I had the honor of serving with him on the Planning Commission, and I also served many years on the Architectural Review panel. So first of all, on finding number 4 of the staff report, it doesn't really mention the purpose of a site plan review, which is, and I'm going to quote the law here, ensure that site development, the exterior appearance of structures and other improvements are designed to minimize adverse aesthetic and environmental impacts on the site and its surroundings. I don't think that finding can be made at all. I don't think this meets the definition of a site plan, that purpose of the site plan review. I doubt the ARP was even asked to minimize the aesthetic impacts of the project. They were probably told just to look at the architecture, which happens all the time on ARP. The only time we ever look at the other environment is when a scenic corridor is involved. I mean, this project is 50% larger than the average house in Westridge. It's 30% larger than any other house in Westridge. So I don't see how anyone can say that it minimizes adverse impacts, adverse aesthetic impacts. I just don't see that. I think all the homeowner complaints about the applicants running their businesses and short-term rentals out of this property and the one across the street are justified. Even the guard told me that the applicants run their cleaning business through their home. And the guard told me that they have employees coming and going, picking up equipment, picking up paychecks. The business is a public record at their rental house.
Chair, if I could just jump in here on this point,
Yeah.
I'm not sure the relevance of the point you're making here.
I'll get to it in a second.
Okay.
The relevance is that they are violating 17.12.115 of the municipal code concerning businesses. They're violating the short-term rental laws, 17.12.175. We just heard that they have an unpermitted bedroom and bathroom, which isn't allowed unless it's permitted. I don't know why staff hasn't sent out code enforcement yet. What's going on with that? But you'll see in a second what I'm talking about, the business and so forth, and the rentals. I think Bill Pauly would see through this floor plan in a heartbeat. Both the former garages, if you look at it, can you remove this from the so we can see each other?
Do you want me to go to a different slide instead, or just?
Oh, just remove
Take
your
off
share
the slides
screen.
so we can see okay. So I think both of the former garages will be used or could be used as one-bedroom suites for short-term rentals, and multiple businesses will be run through the warren of extra rooms that are downstairs. There's just a whole slew of rooms where there will be businesses coming and going. I mean, as a side note, I think this is not going to be that sellable of a home, but that's not our bailiwick. But as far as the architecture you showed on slide 9, the false front that I mentioned at the last meeting, I was surprised that you showed that, because it's a false, intentionally false depiction or artist rendering of the project. And yet you showed it to the public tonight. The new garage on the left juts out 30 feet beyond the existing garages, but that artist rendering is completely and intentionally false. It's nothing like what it's going to look like. And the Exhibit B, the construction plan, also is false, doesn't show the garage coming out as far as it will. You know, as I mentioned, I was out there a couple of weeks ago visiting a friend on Park Casino, and I looked at the front of this property in person. I don't think this new front driveway is going to be very maneuverable. A lot of the landscaping is going to have to come down. That garage comes out farther than the plans that you showed, and the driveway gets very narrow there. And it's there's, I guess the homeowners can come and go, but there's no way you're going to get a truck on that driveway or a fire engine. It's never going to be able to go up there. I think there should be a condition, if this is approved, I think there should be some kind of condition that no vehicle can be permitted to back up, to go in a reverse onto the street. It's just far too dangerous the way this will be configured. I don't understand why the applicants chose to move to an HOA and then ignore its rules. I mean, I'm on the board of directors of Calabasas Hills, which is an HOA just up the street near Bay Laurel. And recently we had one homeowner paint his house gold and aquamarine without obtaining architectural committee approval. And so we just pursued litigation. We didn't stop just because the applicant threatened litigation as well. I just don't know what kind of people move into a place and threaten litigation and so forth.
Let's stick to what's in front of us, Chair.
Well, all right. I think the construction plan, the construction plan attaches Exhibit B is not workable. And I've already made comments about that. I think this project violates the city site plan review law. I think it's designed for short-term rentals and business operations in violation of our city laws and the CC&Rs. I think the architectural plans are intentionally false with respect to that added garage. I think the egress from the narrower driveway than what you've depicted is not addressed and needs to be addressed. How how they're going to get in and out of that narrow driveway, which gets pinched as it goes around the extended new garage. So even if the commission approves this, I hope there's a referral to code enforcement. I'm surprised that hasn't already been done. And if not, then the public out there can refer this to code enforcement. They can call, or they can go online and use the online complaint form to complain about code enforcement, because this just makes no sense to me. Anyway,
Chair,
that's
I'd just
it.
like to jump in here and address one or two things. First, I think I talked to staff earlier today, and I believe they did reach out to members of the public who did have issues that they believe were alleged code enforcement violations, and encourage them to do so. So I think staff just want to recommend that they've been doing a good job here.
Thank you. I was not aware of that because it wasn't mentioned at all, but the public is mentioning it. And,
right.
That's correct, Epi. I just want to reiterate that.
Oh, thank you for letting me know.
We told him
Epi, maybe you can, I'm sorry.
Thank
Right,
you. Even the
and
guard told me, so I wasn't. It wasn't just the
sent him
public.
a link to the page on our website. We told him if you have concerns that that there's any violations of the municipal code, feel free to use this form and report anything.
Right, and there's one or two other points that I want to address. Thank you, Jacqueline, which is that the issue of, and this relates to my previous comment about code enforcement issues, is that issues of kind of related to the HOA and the let's say the tenants themselves, the homeowners, and short-term rentals, and what this would be used for, along with the future intentions or whatever, are not in front of the commission tonight. So let's focus on the substantive comments in the chair's discussion points, including I think we're the construction plan and the site plan and some other stuff. So I encourage the commission to focus on those points and other points that are in the staff report itself, and that staff has reviewed and done the homework on, because those are the findings we need to make depending on whatever the commission wants to do with the project.
All right, well, I'll just repeat it then. I mean, I do believe this project violates the city's site plan review laws. And even though you're saying it's not, we're not to talk about code enforcement issues, I think the architecture shows it's designed for short-term rentals and business operations. I think the architectural plans themselves are intentionally false, the artist rendering and the construction plans. And I think that staff needs to address in the construction plans the egress from the narrower driveway and the traffic and construction activities, which I don't think are sufficient. Anyway, those are just my comments, but now let the other commissioners comment and make motions or proceed.
Michael, I'd like to go back to the traffic issue that I raised earlier. That still is an open wound. What I've heard tonight makes it even worse. We need a report from the city's traffic department on the impacts. And I am not prepared to go one way or the other until I see that report.
We had far more detail on the Greenberg house at the end of the cul-de-sac on Park Vicente than we have on this one. I'm not sure why. It's not very detailed. So I don't know if the staff is willing, if traffic department is willing to come back with something more detailed and specific on that, or
Commissioner Leah, I'm just not sure what kind of report you would like to see on. I think we discussed traffic on the private street or parking or any vehicular activity on private street as well as in the public right of way.
You need to look at the impacts that we have been outlined, not only there, but outside the gate, and the impact, the stacking, where are all these vehicles going to be? We need to be satisfied that we're not going to be doing harm to residents outside of Westridge.
We addressed that by adding some language in the condition number 19.
Doesn't address outside the Westridge.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, we amended that.
I thought that's
Add the
written
park.
It
close.
should
Yeah,
have
the
been
parkway.
amended to include, yeah, it should be amended to include that.
Yeah, if
That's
you
what
look at-
parkway means.
I can read the condition as amended again. So I have it as any project-related construction activity, including vehicular activity, in the public right-of-way or in the streets within Westridge. Corresponding traffic control shall be provided such that individual driveways have safe sight distance, and so on. But that's how that first part was amended to include the public right-of-way and streets within Westridge.
Okay, that's fine, but do you see the problem out there? And you're saying, oh, well, there's a problem, but these rules are going to take care of it. Can you foresee the problem?
I guess the question is, what's the problem that you foresee? Because we're from our perspective and our analysis of the project, there's 5 construction related trucks daily. That's not going to tip the needle and create a traffic conflict in that neighborhood or on Parkway Calabasas, which is designed to accommodate thousands of vehicles per day.
I mean, this is a home addition project, to remind everybody. It's not a commercial building. It's actually really similar to a home addition and pool remodel, everything my wife and I did at our house a few years ago. And we didn't even have 5 construction vehicles at any one time, and they all fit in our driveway. So I'm a little confused as to how much traffic Commissioner Leah anticipates seeing out there.
It's what the residents anticipate seeing that I think we as a city should address before we say yay or nay.
That's what I guess our question, or Commissioner Mueller.
Yeah, Commissioner Leah, I'm satisfied that with the improvement of condition 19, the city through its departments has the authority to both regulate in Westridge on Park Granada, the traffic situation, and to the extent construction traffic has to build up on Parkway Calabasas, it has the authority to regulate that. In other words, they, for some reason, bring in 20 trucks, that's not going to work. They can be stopped from doing that. So I think the authority both in Westridge and outside Westridge has been taken care of. You're right. We could all imagine a parade of horribles that could be devastating, but I think that would be unrealistic to assume that there would be some extraordinary number of vehicles beyond sort of a normal construction project. So I'm at least satisfied that, and I agree with you. I think I raised it last time of a concern about, heck, if you can't stack on Granada, where are you going to go? And Parkway Calabasas is the likely place that one would go. And so I worried, as you did, Bob, about what's it going to look like out there in the morning. And I'm now convinced that Tatiana and others have addressed that with regulatory authority. But I think it has been addressed, frankly.
All right, we have the right. Hopefully, we have the will.
It sounds like construction traffic will be parked on Park Granada, because I know they're not going to be able to fit on that all in the front there. So I guess that's okay.
Hey, Jacqueline, can you read the amended language one more time? Because I didn't get a specific reference to, Parkway Calabasas. I heard within the Westridge community and Park Granada. Can you read that one more time for us?
Yes, it doesn't specify Parkway Calabasas. It just says the public right-of-way, which will cover Parkway Calabasas. So one more time, the first sentence is any project-related construction activity, including vehicular activity, in the public right-of-way or in the streets within Westridge. So the public right-of-way part would cover Parkway Calabasas, and then streets within Westridge would
well, that language doesn't quite. It sounds like it's only within Westridge that you're talking about. Am I missing something?
Yeah, so the Westridge is, since it's a private community, those streets are private streets. Public right-of-way would refer to anything that's not within Westridge or within a gated community.
All right, fine.
Will it be more clear if we'll just add private streets in Westridge community and public right-of-way?
I think the way it's worded now is okay. I didn't understand the terminology. I'm fine with the way it's worded at this point.
I think, Dennis, you had a comment or question?
Yeah, in fact, as in most of the projects that we review with the Planning Commission, all the care and detail-oriented critique as well as solution seeking winds up being in the documentation. And if there is approval of this project this evening, this project will be, number one, highlighted amongst all the folks in the staff and the community for that matter, including the HOA. And the conditions and the findings are the place where we actually deal with the amount of commitment to the attention to the details of the actual project implementation. So I'm personally satisfied that our staff has gone as far as they can in both dealing with our own general plan, our own building and safety, and all the other codes and conditions that we have to face. And this applicant is going to have to, conform and comply with everything that we've talked about tonight. And the amount of attention that we've all called to the order at this point is, I think, is certainly going to put the staff and the applicant and all the people that are, involved in this construction project over the year or so that it's going to take to get all the work done. And the tools are in the resolution and the law of the city and the capability of the staff. So at this point, with all of your comments, Michael and Bob and Greg and John, I believe that we've got a document that can actually manage virtually all the concerns that we've raised. And we have to give these folks their fair chance. And, they're going to have to comply with an awful lot just to get the permit and to continue to operate the redevelopment of their property and even the relations with their neighbors. Everybody is very much now aware and conscious of this. And we have correspondence from folks who are, for and against, that show that everybody's paying attention. So I think we've done a good job. The commission, the staff, the applicant, the designer, the architect. And at this point, we ought to stop worrying about whether our folks are capable of making sure that we get the best project that is allowable under our laws done over the next year or so that this is going to go on. Those are my comments.
Let me ask a question. Would it be improper to have language that said no construction-related vehicles shall be parked in the public right-of-way?
Or you could certainly add that. I don't know how they would be parked on Parkway Calabasas, but I think I agree with you. I think that's where they're going to have to go. Unless Westridge allows them to be parked on Park Casino and the neighbors there aren't going to like it. So, and it's too steep to park in front of the house here.
I'll just ask, I'm sorry, I just want to ask if there's a place on a public right-of-way nearby and somebody was to park their car there and jump in the truck of the fellow worker and go up there, broad brush language like that could be interpreted as they can't even park here at City Hall.
Well, I believe there's no parking on Parkway Calabasas, so I'm not even sure where they would go down there. I think they're just going to hang out and wait in front of the gate or something.
Well, I think from what we understand, they're going to be going on the property that's already got capacity, but as a belt and suspenders to try to limit what goes on outside the property, that's why the language is there. But if you want to include public rights of way outside the gates, which the language basically already does, it's
right.
just.
And I think what Tom is referring to is we do want to encourage, staff is very confident that all the trucks, all the work vehicles will be able to be parked on the property. In the case that that's not possible, we do want to encourage, I guess, workers to commute or, so that not a lot of cars are clogging the street because, if the project is approved, then workers need to get there anyways. So we want to take the belt and suspenders approach, but there is a fear of going a little bit too far, I guess.
Bob, to address your comment, if there is no legal parking on Parkway Calabasas for construction trucks, we don't need to, if that's the law, we don't need to reiterate it in a condition. What do we call it? The parkway, the public right of way. Doesn't that cover all non-private streets in Calabasas? So among all non-private streets in Calabasas, some of them you can park on, some of them you can't. That's already defined. So I think the limit, the ability of the traffic division or whichever division is going to do it to control what happens on the public streets is in condition 19. I don't think we need to gild the lily and say, but not Parkway Calabasas, because that's already part of the law.
True.
Okay,
They can park on Park Granada. I know it's the same name, but it's different
Right.
in front of,
Outside the gates.
yeah, exactly. On the other side of Parkway Calabasas, there is parking there on Park
You're
Granada.
right.
So,
Well, that's a rough one. If you're ever in there sitting around for any length of time, there's a lot of traffic and there's a lot of parking on the street there, but you're right, there would be some room. That's a pretty congested intersection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I'm happy with the language at this point.
So can I make a motion?
sure, go ahead.
I will make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-750 with the amendments. And I think it's only condition 19 that we amended. Is that right, Jacqueline?
Yes, condition 19.
With the amendments to condition 19, which you have recorded. That's my motion.
And who will second that? Or do we have a second?
Dennis?
He's muted.
Oh, he's muted.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Do we have any other comments or discussion about the motion? No?
I would just, in support of my motion, because I made it, I would like to recall to the commissioners that at the last hearing on January 19, the owner, the Daydons, testified, I know it's not under oath, but it's testimony, that they intended this house, it's the only house that is before us tonight, to be their family residence, that they would occupy as a private family in Calabasas. That's the testimony on record. If something changes, they do something different, the HOA and the city can go back to that testimony, which is part of the record.
There, I would like to point out, and maybe more for members of the public may not understand this, but the HOA and the city as well have some limits imposed upon us by federal and state laws to what constitutes a family or a group of people who can occupy a single family dwelling. So I want to be careful about somebody misconstruing what Commissioner Mueller was just saying. I don't think we can go in there and start figuring out who's related to whom.
Right. I just wanted to underscore the prior testimony.
All right, if there are no other comments, then I guess we can vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Bob, you were aye?
yes,
Okay, and I'm going to vote no for the reasons that I've already stated. And is there anything else you need from us, Jacqueline?
I don't think so. I think I've got all the changes I need to condition 19.
Well, I wanted to thank you for all the work you've put into this. Dennis, you have a comment?
Chair Harrison, I would just say that since it is a split vote and we adjusted the minutes of the last meeting to recommend, record essentially the voters for and against the project, we should note that at this point. And I'm for it. I saw that John was, and I don't know who else because
Bob and Greg.
Greg and Bob.
Okay, I'm okay with it.
okay, so it's 4-1 with Harrison opposed.
Yes, it's 4. I'm sorry. I thought I said that, but yes, it was 4 to
No,
1.
it's clear. Thank you very much. I just want to
Yeah, you're right. They want us to
follow
put
our
that.
own rules essentially.
Right, they want us to put it in our minutes, so. But we don't have to say the names, or do we have to say the names? I don't know.
Yes.
I
Oh,
thought that was
okay,
the intent.
okay, all right, I have no problem with that. I've already stated my reasons, so. Now we're going on to, again, thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
We're going on to future agenda items and reports, and I believe Michael has some suggestions here.
Thank you, Chair Harrison. A couple things to bring up. Number one, the March 2nd Planning Commission meeting will likely be canceled. We don't have a public hearing item tracking for that, so you can put that down as most likely going to be canceled. If something does come up, we'll try and alert the commission as soon as possible. I did want to ask the commission and get some feedback as to some concept or ideas of future training or educational sessions for the commission, and just wanted to get a sense if that's something that the commissioners are interested in. One option is to do a nuts and bolts of what it means to be a planning commissioner, and it's just kind of piggybacking off of the ethics training that the city attorney just put on for commission and for staff. I think it's always great to have refreshers, and that's something that we're contemplating. If the commission is interested, I would work with the city attorney's office to put together a presentation. This would happen at a public hearing or a public meeting, but it's not a public hearing item. It would just be at a public meeting, and it could be on, the agenda could just be that, or it could be on with any other commission item for that particular meeting. A couple other concepts include having a presentation by the water district. So for example, the Pure Water Project, which is quite interesting and fascinating. And if someone, either on the commission or the public are not aware of what that project is, then the water district is happy to provide a presentation to the commission, as well as opportunities for drought tolerant planting that would be, beneficial for the area, that can be incorporated on private property and commercial property. Another concept idea is to have a presentation maybe from our EPIC group to talk about home hardening and fire safety preparedness type of stuff as it relates to building structures. So these are just a few ideas. I'm open to other suggestions, but I wanted to at least get the commissioners thinking about some, educational and presentation opportunities that staff is happy to bring forward at a future meeting. Feel free to share your thoughts now or email me later, whatever you would like to do. And then the other thing that I did want to point out is that the city is going to hold on February 23rd a environmental public forum. And they call it the Lawn to Drought Tolerant. And this is ways to change Calabasas yards and gardens to meet the new era of water scarcity. And I know some commissioners have incorporated this in their own yards, and it looks fabulous. So this is going to be held in person at the city in Founders Hall on February 23rd from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I can include a link to the flyer. There are 3 different speakers that will be there. That includes someone from the Tree People Land Trust, the Las Virgenes Municipal Water District, and the city's very own Heather Melton, who's the Landscape District Manager. So it should be a very fun and educational forum, and I encourage everyone listening to attend. And I can include a link to that information here on the chat. So that's it for my director's report. Again, if there's any comments regarding my first item, please let me know. Otherwise, feel free to email me as well.
Well, I think we have a couple of comments. Looks like Dennis has some.
I do. In fact, Michael, thank you for the I guess wish list and work list. And February 23rd is none too soon. I think it's a great idea, and it's going to take a lot to deal with the next 10 years worth of development and living and quality of life, whether it's water quality and quantity, or it's soil stabilization and even flood control. Who knew we were going to have atmospheric rivers in our language? And all the newscasters and the weather ladies are telling us that we have new threats every moment of our lives. it makes good news and sells a lot of commercials, but in the end, it comes down to actually what does each resident do with their life in Calabasas? And it's going to take years, literally, to deal with that. And it's no time too soon to start. I appreciate the February 23rd offer. And I would just encourage the commissioners, if they haven't already visited the Pure Water project that's in the old headquarters building of the Las Virgenes Municipal Water District, you should go, because the staff there and even the CEO, Dave Peterson, would be happy to give you a personal tour and show the implications of what's going on there. And it's become a model for not just our area, but for the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, and the state of California. And we're going to have to pay a lot of money, the bunch of us. And it's good to start now to find out who else is going to give us money, as we have been getting money from the EPA and other agencies to make the operational componentry public and the best demonstration of what needs to be done for water quality and water quantity, when you can't build reservoirs and you can't expect your groundwater capacity to fix the problem of water for firefighting, water for us, water for everything from cooking to pets. I mean, it's critical stuff. So what you've outlined, Michael, I think is brilliant. And it would be good to actually use the Planning Commission forum, in my opinion, on a regular basis to do this kind of educational function for us and for the community. And it might be good for us to take the information that you get out of a February 23rd meeting and find a way to include it in a future agenda over the next 6 to 12 months for this and each of the subjects that you brought up on your list of learning opportunities.
I couldn't agree more with Dennis. He expressed it so well, but I have one special request, sort of to combine something that you mentioned, Michael. I had this issue when I built my ADU. You have to do drought tolerant landscaping, and at the same time, you have to be concerned about fire and get fire department approval. And to me, it's sort of conflicting. So I wonder if you can bring the water district, but maybe also the fire department or somebody with that background to explain how we can plant things in a way that, there's still vegetation and cooling and that sort of thing, but it doesn't create a fire hazard. And maybe you could combine the epic people with the water people. I don't know. But I agree with everything that Dennis just said. I would look forward to having monthly or whatever it is, bi-monthly presentations on those topics you mentioned.
Okay.
But maybe if the other commissioners have other topics, you can mention them now, or you can email Michael Klein with their suggestions, whatever you wish. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dennis.
Michael, it's not just native plants and drought tolerant gardening or landscaping in private residences or in community property, but we're dealing with everything from water, energy, atmosphere, land, meaning soil, and agriculture, and technology and habitat. All of those topics are what a planning commission, in my opinion, should be helping the community understand what the next 10 or 20 or 30 years is going to demand of us all. And if you haven't heard of 69 Bravo, and the water or fire or response, fluid dropping helicopters, at the top of Topanga, there is a 34-acre property that it would be worth your looking up. If you look up 69 Bravo, or I think it's called the Rapid Response, firefighting program, LA County has bought into it. But it actually protects Calabasas, because within 5 minutes, really, if there's a fire that's detected anywhere in our region, a helicopter could be dispatched from Van Nuys to the 69 Bravo station, and they will help protect Topanga and Calabasas immediately, but Malibu as well, and all the way out to Camarillo. There should be stations like this all the way out to Camarillo in the Santa Monica Mountains. And it would be good for us as planners and authorities essentially in our community to look at water, energy, atmosphere, land, technology, and habitat. I mean, we're building a $100 million plus wildlife crossing. It's a model for the planet right here in River City. So we're doing great work, and we are doing it because we care. And it would be good to make sure that those of us who have been experienced in this stuff share the things that we know and learn the things that we don't. So thanks, Michael, and thank you, Michael Harrison, for
No, thank you, Dennis. I mean,
for reinforcing the thought.
I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, we have disaster issues, we have all kinds of issues. And so anyway, so you've got some ideas, Michael, but I think that would be great because we don't have that kind of presentation or the time to present this information to the community. Certainly not. Anyway, anything else from the other commissioners? Any suggestions, comments? No. Anything else from staff, or are we finished for today?
That's it on my end.
All right. Well, thank
I'll
you
move to
all.
adjourn, Michael.
Okay. Is there any opposition to that? No?
Second.
All right. Then we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.